Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Alicia McKay Show. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning. Just as we were setting up, the third of our panelists, who you may find notably absent, said, "Did anyone else get an error when trying to log on this morning?" And sure enough, as the title graphics were playing, Alicia has vanished. So, well, it might be perceived to be a coup CV, but no, I think in this case, it's merely tech failing us. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning on this beautiful Friday in Wellington. Wherever you're coming from, we'd love to hear a hello in the chat if you're watching live. Otherwise, it's on with the show. CV, some big things afoot in the UK at the moment. And you're a man with the finger on the pulse of what's going on in a lot of the political landscape. What can you tell us?
Well, it's hard to have a finger on the pulse because, the UK has always had an interesting time zone difference with New Zealand. There is a strange cycle. When I used to work for the UK, you would kind of, in some ways it worked beautifully, and in other ways not at all. So you would like email your stuff off at the end of the day and come back and they'd done a whole lot of things. It was sort of an efficient cycle. But in other ways, I'm still finding out the complete chaos of everything that's happened in the UK overnight. We have effectively a zombie prime minister. He's resigned from leadership of the Conservative Party, but is threatening to sort of stay on until they elect someone else, which everybody that's quit is not very happy with. But possibly just
so for those of us who aren't familiar with the term, is a zombie prime minister is that common parlance? Has this happened before?
No, I've just made that up then, but this is my attempt to try and make headlines. So the big picture is that UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has now had so many scandals that it's the proverbial straw that broke the privileged camel's back, and he just couldn't stay on anymore. So the latest scandal involves how much he knew about sexual assault allegations of an MP, and it led to mass resignations across his government. So this finally tipped the scales where every UK MP basically resigned, including the Chancellor.
I saw the headlines. There were some like 20 massive major resignations all at once. So rather than a straw that breaks the camel's back, it seems like just hay bales have just been thrown onto some poor camel at a great speed from a great height. And I'm very pleased to see that the technology has returned to working order and we have an Alicia. Alicia, how is your morning?
Well, there was a point, and I don't know what's going to happen on the replay. There was a point when I came back in and it said that you guys weren't here, but I was, and I opened the show as though I was on my own. Is that real, or did I dream that? Am I living in some kind of fugue state?
This is everything, everywhere, all at once. No, CV, now I've been, I think, live the entire time. But who could say?
Well, at one point I came in and opened on my own. But anyway, what I've been thinking about, and I assume you've immediately been into old bloody Boris, is situations where people really, it was time for them to leave, but they couldn't get the hint. And trying to think about other examples of times when, you've had people over and you've done the exaggerated yawn and been like, oh, I've got work in the morning. It's getting on.
And we were talking the other day about the cultural differences between nationalities, where we were talking about Eastern Europe and Australian Indigenous culture, where you can say it's time for you to leave now and it's not rude.
And so I wonder if anyone sort of had that chat with Boris, or if the English was so polite that they were like dropping hints for 3 months. And then they were like, honestly, if it's either have an awkward conversation or quit, I'm quitting.
I don't think you'll find the most Brits are very polite about Boris anymore.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any British friends. I've just said that.
Every episode is an absolute race for how quickly Alicia can say she hates everyone.
Shall I tell the story about the time that Boris sung me a song?
Please.
So when I worked for the British High Commission, I was the head of comms there, and I was in charge of doing Boris's media when he came to New Zealand as Foreign Secretary in 2017. The first good story from that trip is the plane that they were arriving on from Japan via Australia. The plane took off 6 hours late because of a frozen turd. So what can happen? What can happen, I learned, is that if you have a significant amount of fecal material running through the pipes that go from an airplane's internal toilet through to the septic tank, and you're flying incredibly high, you get to very low temperatures, and just occasionally, some of the material can freeze. So what this led to was that they had to change planes very rapidly, and therefore their luggage was on a separate flight than the people. And so they arrived with nothing to wear. So we had to send the High Commission's driver to Kmart at 11:30
God, stop.
to get spare underwear for the delegation, as well as a clean shirt to wear.
Oh no, this is too
Alicia,
good.
I am not mature enough for this conversation.
So they're off to Kmart. The frozen poo delayed them. They popped down to Kmart and picked up some child labour induced undies and a shirt. Yeah.
So that night we got them dressed, and then we went out to dinner at Havana.
Toddlers. We got them dressed, put them in the baby seat.
Well, traveling on international delegations it's a very tricky affair. You're doing so much at the time, but actually what people traveling like that recognize the most is just someone who's going to help them with the most practical thing, which is, I don't have any clean underwear, please sort this out. But anyway, this led to, in a roundabout way, to Boris briefly singing me a Rolling Stones song, which was I was explaining, so we had to brief them on kind of what the trip would hold, and I was explaining the concept of a porphyry and kind of how it works, and took the immense liberty of throwing in one of my own ideas about maybe how things could go, which is that I've always thought that the manuhiri coming on should sing a waiata that reflects sort of their culture that they're bringing, so something that they know really well. And he sort of interrupted me during this little spiel and started singing Angie by the Rolling Stones. And it's just one of those moments that I will never, ever forget. The other thing I managed to angle on...
CV, before you go on, can you please do an impression of Boris Johnson singing Angie for us?
Please.
You must.
I think the reason
Sing it.
The reason he chose
it.
to cut in with that is it's just such a beautiful thing to cut someone off with. So someone's in mid-flight and you just kind of take a deep breath and go, Angie. Angie.
Okay, that is magnificent. And then immediately leads me to ask, because I'm thinking about, so I was at this amazing ceremony in Queenstown a few weeks ago where a very important chief in a tribe that I'm part of was presented with a really special toku that had been carved especially for him from a local kaumātua, and we were like, okay, well, all the Kiwi, because there was a whole bunch of Australians there, and we were like, well, all the Kiwis are going to stand up and sing a waiata. What are we going to sing? And I lobbied really hard for Tūtera Mai, but we ended up with Te Aroha, but that's fine. And then we were like, should the Australians sing? Like, what should happen? Should we teach them a waiata? And the kaumātua was like, nah, they can just sing like Waltzing Matilda if they want. That's their jam. And I'm like, that backs up your absolute theory, CV.
Yeah. I've always thought that if it is, I mean, Yeah, if you look at the traditional purpose of a porphyry, it's to welcome visitors from another part who will presumably bring a waiata from their part of the world. So yeah, I think we should do closing time by Semisonic if that's what suits the group.
I am here for it. I'm still not entirely certain about the frozen poo. Like, I understand the luggage had to go on a different plane, but I'm not sure how the frozen turd played into that. Is that the reason the luggage was late, or it just happened to happen?
So they didn't have, once they found out about the frozen poo, they didn't have time to unload the luggage because, well, I think it was just the formal British government delegation that changed planes. Probably the other passengers were stuck with it, which is, the point about privilege, isn't it?
How do you find out about a frozen poo?
It's probably all sorts of sensors. I'm imagining there's a big light in the cockpit that says frozen turd.
Oh, you want? Yeah.
No, it sounds like it was a surprise.
Do you not think it's on the checklist? The pre-flight checklist. They're like,
are you thinking overflowing bowl?
Have you checked the frozen poo light?
I'm not an expert. I'm just wondering. All right, so Boris is out. He really took his bloody time, but he finally figured it out. And Cam has something to do with the trolley.
Well, the internet this week has been having a bit of fun with a new variation of a very old thing, as the internet likes to do. So the trolley problem is a classic philosophical dilemma, ethical dilemma, if you will. And you've probably seen it, but if you haven't, the trolley problem is you happen to be standing next to a railway and there's a lever and you can divert a train car. And in the classic problem, there are 5 people laying on the tracks. And if you want, you can change the course of the train so that instead of running over and killing those 5 people, it goes onto a different track and kills a single person.
Yeah, so kill him.
Yeah, exactly, right? No hesitation at all from Alicia there. Now, the original problem was designed to make the distinction between what it's like to proactively kill someone, as Alicia has just very enthusiastically jumped in with.
Do you want me to pull it?
And letting someone die.
She pulled it 5 minutes ago.
I think actually Alicia's going to be one of those people who pulls the lever after the first half of the train has crossed the joint so that the back half stays on the original track and all 6 people are killed. I think that's...
No, I've pulled the lever and then they're like, I wish you would have just looked, Alicia, because there are currently someone untying the rope on those other 5. Those other 5 people are going to be fine. And I'm like, too late, pull the lever. Someone's going to die.
Well, this website, the website is neil.fun, and I can only assume that's been named after its creator, Lucy Fun. You can choose what you want the train to do on the track, and it gives you a percentage of which people have chosen which thing. So, Alicia, you're definitely in the majority there, with 79% of people saying yes, immediately kill the other person on the track.
No, but here's the thing: everyone says they're going to do that, but nobody does it. They just watch the trolley roll over the 5 people, and they're like, "Oh, I was going to do something, but like." I couldn't because I didn't want to be responsible directly for somebody dying. So I would rather have my own inaction and lack of courage and total ineptitude as a human being be responsible for mass murder.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the classic response. And most of these tests are designed to evaluate what first-year psychology students think from privileged backgrounds rather than what happens in the real world. Although there was an example, I did see a video of someone who set up on an actual train track, actual trains, and the experiment was a trainee train driver was put into an office where they thought they were seeing actual footage of actual trains, and then their supervisor steps out of the room just as a train comes onto a track that it's not meant to, and the student knows, according to all their training, what's going to happen, that this train is actually going to crash. They believe it's going to crash, and so they're presented with the trolley problem in real life, and 80% of them did intervene. So that was the slightly comforting thing. It wasn't just hypotheticals. But the interesting thing about the experiment generally is that it was designed to make the distinction between killing someone or letting them die. Now, in the trolley problem, the classic first trolley problem that we just saw, letting 5 people die or proactively changing the course of the track and killing 1 person, that's a pretty easy decision to make. And Alicia, you were on it in a flash, like, yeah, kill it. The experiment was designed to make it obvious how different this following scenario is, but it's kind of the same. So if there's a surgeon operating on a patient, one single patient, and if they like, they can kill the patient and harvest 5 of their organs, which 5 other patients need as life-saving transplants, what would you do? If you were the surgeon, the idea of proactively killing a patient is quite different than saving a single patient.
So is in this hypothetical, is it set up so that like there are 5 willing, waiting organ recipients outside who've popped their head in the door and they're like, mate, I know you said you were going to fix this guy, but if you killed him right now, you would save all of us. And we know for certain that the other 5 are definitely going to die if he doesn't pull a sneaky and kill the person on the operating table. Like, if we got a lot of certainty about those variables.
Absolute certainty. And like, it doesn't even have to pull a sneaky, really, for the purposes of the exercise. Could just go in and stab them. Just like slit their throat. From an ethical standpoint, not really different than the trolley problem, but feels
yes,
different,
it is.
Which is why...
No, it doesn't just feel different. It doesn't just feel different. It is completely different, because the first question says, in a circumstance where something bad is going to happen, would you proactively intervene in a positive way? The second one says, in a situation where life is cracking on as always and all sorts of things could happen, would you proactively intervene in a negative way against one person that would ultimately be better off, but no one is expecting you to do because, dude, that's fucked up? That's a very different question.
Exactly. It's a totally different question, which is why it's fun to think about, because we're not measuring the outcome, you're measuring the intervention and whether or not we expect people to intervene rather than proactively do something. So this website lists a whole heap of different problems on that in that vein. And so I thought we'd just whiz through a couple of them now. So this example is there's 5 people on the track and you can pull the lever to save them, but it's going to destroy your life savings.
Oh, how old am I when this happens?
It's today. Like, so we finished the show, you walk outside, there it is.
Could I monetize, do you think, the saving of the people through some kind of memoir and or roadshow afterwards?
Oh, crowdfund, like a live stream where you're like, if we get to $5 million, I'll divert the train.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's available to you. 30% of people think that the 5 people should die and you could protect your life savings. But who could say? Here's another example. If you're lying on the track, you're the single person that gets killed if you save the 5 people.
What kind
CV,
of people
what are you doing?
Are the 5?
You don't know. There's no
How
time.
do you know that?
CV, you're lying on the track and you can reach the lever with your teeth. You're tied to the track. What do you do?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, CV, absolutely willing to top himself. But in that sense, he's in the minority of the people who responded to this survey, which, by the way, has had an impressive number of respondents. Like 750,000 people answered that question in the last 3 days. Excellent stuff.
Is that then a self-esteem issue for me now? That's 61% of people.
No, darling. You're a lovely, lovely man.
By the sounds of it, in that tone of voice, Alicia would definitely also kill you.
Well, no, it's just hard to know because I'm going to shut up because I'm going to get myself into trouble. With these heaps of those arts. Bugger the art.
So you're not worried about the art? Yeah, all right, the art can go. What about if a really rich person is offering to give you your life savings to kill a poor person?
Nah, I'm immediately going to kill the rich guy because like this is going to piss me off that he even thought to ask.
So the Mona Lisa is destroyed in this universe. We kind of whizzed through that one, but we've lost that one.
Yeah. Well, CV, like if you can throw the lever and save the Mona Lisa if you're willing to kill a few people, is that something you're happy to do?
No, let's burn it.
All right. Now, after last week's discussion, I wanted to get to this one. So, levels of sentience is the basis of this trolley problem, and we're wondering if you would rather sacrifice 5 lobsters or 1 cat. Now, after last week's discussion about the problem of feral cats invading New Zealand and killing local fauna, the solution might be easier. What do you think about this one?
I'm killing the lobsters because I would eat them, but I wouldn't eat my cat.
Yeah, I would. I'm going lobsters as well.
I mean, Cam's gone silent, presumably because he's so overwhelmed with his thoughts on this. So this reminds me of I've been doing a bunch of research around like moral conflict and value-based conversations, and I've just been rereading Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind, which is such a great book. And he has all these hypotheticals that he also researches and puts to students. So one of them, CV, is a family has a beloved family dog. They've had it for 10 years. It's like been a part of the children's lives. They love the dog. Unfortunately, the dog gets hit by a car and the dog dies outside their house, which is extremely sad. They all cry. They have a funeral service for the dog, and then they cut it up and eat it for dinner. Is that all right? And like, it is, isn't it? But also, you made a face. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I did make a face. I can't stop thinking about is the world that you painted before, in which people having surgery and needing spare organs just knock on the door of the surgeon's surgery and say, "Oi, mate, can I have that guy's skin? Can I just like, have that?"
Hook us up. Oi, can I? Because like, I come from a background where you would, always try and just like scab a smoke off people. Like, oi, can I just bum a drag? Can I get a hand drag? And I'm just imagining like a very similar vibe at the hospital. Like, oi, can I just like graft a bit of that skin? Oi, just gives a bit like half a kidney, man.
Gives a hoon on that guy's heart just for a bit.
Gives a hoon on his heart. Fuck. All right.
What about if the people tie themselves to the track?
What? Why are they doing? Oh, I cannot be bothered with people. Who's doing that? Yeah, no, that's it.
All right,
I'm going to speed the train up if you're going to tie yourself to the track, you fucking idiots.
Brilliant. All right, now I've got a question for you then, Alicia. If there was tied to, actually, we'll start with CV. CV, the South Island is on the track that's going to be run over, but you can divert the train with the lever and make it run over the North Island, killing all of them instead. So CV, we're living in the North Island, but CV's parents and grandfather in the South Island and a few other nearest and dearest. What are you doing,
Well, and
CV?
the North Island is significantly more populous.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, this is a classic trolley problem.
You've only got 5 seconds, mate.
To Iki Maui, you're gone. North Island's gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right, Alicia, Ginger, our dog, is on the track and will be killed if you don't intervene. But if you do intervene, the train is going to run over your new and expensive and very comfortable sheepskin beanbag.
Well, that's stupid. I'll just buy another beanbag. What a stupid question.
Your answers are always very unpredictable. All right, Alicia, New Zealand is going to be run over by the trolley, but if you pull the lever, it hits Australia instead.
Oh, like Australia's got a lot more people, but they're all Australian, so I'm knocking out Australia.
And fair enough. What would it take for you to not knock out the alternative? So say if it was like all of Europe.
I don't want to play anymore. All right. I get it. Moral things, big quandaries. Thank you, Cam, for testing our moral choices without warning on the internet for everybody to view without offering any of your own. That was magnificent, Cameron Fink. Well done. Okay, so Boris has gone, CV, and I missed your initial lead up to it. So have you got any hot takes on this one that I need to hear?
Zombie Prime Minister. He's gonna lurch towards the leadership battle. No one knows who'll take over, so there isn't. One of the reasons he wasn't kind of replaced till now is we don't exactly have a lot of people who have covered themselves in glory in this government, particularly around COVID response and other things. So yeah, it's genuinely it's one of those situations that's actually. It's not as though there is sort of tribalist glory in this, because Labour haven't done too well either. Keir Starmer hasn't made much of an impact. And for many years now, Labour have been out in the wilderness and just a bit useless. I mean, there was a mini version of Bernie Mania around Corbyn, but it really didn't coalesce, and there was a whole lot of scandal involving kind of potential anti-Semitism within that camp that really tainted things, even through a lot of youth enthusiasm about Corbyn. So it's just a mess, and we're gonna see a lot of cynicism about politics, which I don't think is good for anyone.
Well, I just wonder if this is a great opportunity for just a bit of innovation in the political process from, the OG Westminsters, where it's like, oh, okay, what if we crowdsourced like the election? Technically, I know voting is crowdsourcing, but like crowdsourcing candidates where it's just like, all right, everyone, like you've all got a week to put up your fave on this website, and then we're all going to vote on that.
Yeah, I mean, my one response to that is Boaty McBoatface, because that's a great outcome. If anyone doesn't know, there was a competition to name a British Navy vessel, where was
it a deckless vessel?
It was a deckless vessel. The stupidest name instantly went to the top of the polls, which is arguably what we've just had with the Prime Minister. So
I was about to say, isn't that what has just happened in the UK and before that the US with their elections anyway? Like, I can't get any worse than electing Donald Trump. So why not just chuck it open and see what happens?
Well, it's a nice idea.
That's how they justify referendums, but it just sucks all of the wealth inequality out of it, and if anything, just privileges the young and technically literate, which honestly we could probably do with a bit of.
Yeah, well, privilege is sort of the wider point here. If you're reflecting on Boris's tenure as a politician in general, as Mayor of London, as Prime Minister. What I would like to link to in terms of a literary concept to understand some of his rise is something I will always keep with me when trying to understand the world, which is Kurt Vonnegut's concept of the money river. So Kurt Vonnegut wrote a book called God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, which is kind of about financial privilege and the just inherent unfairness about American society. And he, in the end, concluded that, yeah, that's all very good, but we should have set a maximum cap on wealth, and that would harm precisely no one because of the sort of toxic effects of the upper echelons of wealth, but would have helped so many people. But he writes so beautifully about this metaphor for wealth, which he calls the money river. So some people are born closer to the money river than others, and some people are able to drink freely from the money river. So while they technically have equal access, you're born closer to it. You grew up with it. So the quote is, "The money river, where the wealth of nation flows, we were born on the banks of it. We can slurp from that mighty river to our heart's content, and we can even take slurping lessons, just so we can slurp more efficiently." Slurping lessons? From lawyers, from tax consultants. We're born close enough to the river to drown ourselves in the next 10 generations in wealth, simply using dippers and buckets. We can still hire the experts to teach us the use of aqueducts, dams, reservoirs, siphons, bucket brigades, and Archimedes' screw. Our teachers in turn become rich, and their children become buyers of lessons of slurping, which it's so good.
That is so good.
It is so true about just learning the ways of the financial world, and it's a binary thing whether you have had exposure to that or not. And I'm sure you have thoughts, Alicia McKay.
Oh, I really do. I think that's magnificent. And I think it's just an assonance issue here. But when you're talking about slurping, I immediately thought of the long conversation we once had about schlooping, which was our technical term for when you manage to get into a job or a contract position where you actually do so little, but people are hamstrung without you. And so you can just schloop it. And It's like when you pay for the ongoing use of someone's IP and they're like, I haven't even updated it, but pay up. And we just like, and you and I basically just being jealous and wishing we could be a bit more schloopy. And
Yeah,
so
well,
there is a relationship between schlooping and slurping, I would have thought.
Yeah, my favorite schlooping story of all time was this guy who had a government department over a barrel because he was the only one who could update their IT system, and they couldn't afford to upgrade the IT system. And meanwhile, he'd kind of moved on with his life, so he'd moved over to London and become a cab driver in a complete career switch. But every
surely
so often
in that context, it's a lane change.
But every so often, this government department would just ring him up and say, "Oh, can you get this working again?" And he would charge them sort of twice as much every time that he did this, and just pull over in his cab, fix it on his phone, and make bank.
He had the knowledge. Brilliant.
Well, because the whole world, as someone close to us both suggested recently, the whole world rests really on just like 2 spreadsheets. Underneath it all of the complex algorithms and platforms, there are 2 spreadsheets running it all, and they're on Excel 95.
No, they're on the first train line. There's 2 spreadsheets on train line 1, and if you flip the switch...
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Look, it's 8:33. I have to go take a kid to school. Worth making the point that it's only one because apparently I can't get all 3 children off to school on the same day anymore because we live in a world of school closures and second waves and constantly ill children and everything else. But I have managed to get 2 out of 3 off today. So I've taken one already. One's going soon. What good news. And I'm quarantining the other one, so I don't really have to hear from it. Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us on today, Friday, the 8th of July, for the Alicia McKay Show, where it is taming down with rain in Wellington, and I intend to spend the day with both the dog and the beanbag because thankfully there is not a train hurtling towards us ready to take one out. I hope you all have a magnificent day and a wonderful weekend, and we will catch you all next week. Ka kite.
Bye, everybody.